December 2024. The boardrooms of Hudson's Bay Company smelled like victory and expensive champagne. They had just closed the Titan merger, a $2.7 billion deal that stitched Saks Fifth Avenue and Neiman Marcus into a single, supposedly unstoppable machine, Saks Global. This wasn't just a retail play, it was a tech-armored fortress. Amazon handling the logistics, Salesforce wiring in the personalization algorithms. Together, they were going to build the too-big-to-fail monopoly of American luxury. Their pitch? Data so precise, it would know you wanted a new handbag before you did. But here's the thing about too big to fail. In high finance, it's usually just a polite way of saying too heavy to move. Fast forward 13 months. That champagne, it's turned to vinegar. On January 14, 2026, Saks Global walked into a bankruptcy court and filed for Chapter 11. The self-proclaimed monopoly of luxury didn't slowly unravel, it detonated, leaving behind a $4.7 billion crater of debt in record time.
How does a company backed by two of the most powerful tech titans on Earth collapse so completely this fast? The answer isn't just bad management. It's a signal, a flare fired from the wallets of the American middle class who finally stopped pretending they were rich.
The data I'm about to walk you through isn't what you'll find in a press release. We're going behind the velvet rope to find out exactly who and what killed Saks Global. If this kind of no-fluff business forensics is your thing, consider sticking around. I won't ask you to subscribe yet. I'll earn it first. Let's get into it. $4.7 billion. That's the ocean of red ink Saks Global was already drowning in the moment they walked into that courtroom. To put it in perspective, that number exceeds the entire GDP of some sovereign nations, all of it resting on the creaking floors of aging department stores. But this wasn't a slow bleed, it was a cardiac event. The trigger was a missed $100 million interest payment in late December 2025. While you were wrapping gifts and hunting for parking at the mall, the biggest luxury retailer in America was quietly checking its couch cushions for change.
Then there was the synergy trap, the dirty secret buried inside the merger documents. They called it optimization. Court filings later revealed it was closer to cannibalism. A staggering 40% of Saks and Neiman locations sat in the same mall or within 5 miles of each other.
Read that again. You just paid $2.7 billion to compete with yourself.
And the tech hubris? Amazon and Salesforce were supposed to fix the fundamentals with algorithms. Instead, the physical stores quietly rotted. By late 2025, the factors, industry middlemen like Hilden Group who guarantee brand payments, hit the panic button. They stopped shipments. The emperor had no clothes, and soon the emperor's stores had none either. Ghost shelves appeared during the most critical shopping season of the year. Even Amazon couldn't paper over it. By the January 2026 filings, Amazon's equity stake was officially declared worthless. Hundreds of millions in unpaid vendor invoices had already incinerated the tech giant's investment before the ink was dry on the merger. But while the board was popping bottles, a storm was brewing somewhere no algorithm was tracking: the wallet of the American making 6 figures. Meet the Henry. High earner, not rich yet. Household income somewhere between $100,000 and $250,000. For decades, the Henry was the beating heart of the luxury machine. They were the ones who saved for 6 months to walk out of Saks with one $3,000 Saint Laurent bag, proof, finally, that they'd arrived.
In 2025, the Henrys stopped arriving.
A lethal cocktail of higher-for-longer interest rates and stubborn inflation had finally drained the last of the pandemic-era savings buffer. By mid-2025, that $3,000 bag didn't feel like a reward. It felt like a liability.
But here's the part no CEO will ever say on an earnings call. Closing stores isn't rationalization, it's surrender. And in 3 minutes, I'm going to show you the K-curve chart that explains why your local mall is turning into a ghost town, and it has almost nothing to do with online shopping.
But first, the Henrys, the customers Saks thought were loyal, who just walked out and never looked back.
The market had already split into two. At the top, the ultra-wealthy, the actual 1%, had long since moved on. By 2026, 38% of luxury revenue had shifted directly to brand-owned boutiques. If you're buying a $10,000 Chanel bag, you want the Chanel experience, not a cramped corner in a struggling department store. At the other end, the middle class didn't just get squeezed, they got wise. According to 2025 PwC data, Gen Z slashed discretionary apparel spending by 13% year over year. But they didn't stop dressing well. They pivoted to the dupe economy. 82% of Gen Z and millennials said they'd rather buy a high-quality dupe or a viral TikTok brand than a mid-tier luxury item from a store like Neiman Marcus. A department store cannot survive on the 1% alone. It needs the 10%. And when that 10% figured out that status was just a marketing story, Saks Global lost its volume. And without volume, you cannot service $4.7 billion in debt. Backed into a corner, the management made one last desperate bet in early 2026, the Great Off-Price Massacre. They shuttered 57 out of 69 Saks Off Fifth locations. That's 82% of the discount fleet, gone in a single month. Neiman Marcus matched it, liquidating 100% of their last call stores. The strategy was to protect the brand, force customers back to full price, a luxury or bust ultimatum. Spoiler, it was bust. By killing the discount arms, they severed the last lifeline connecting them to the middle-class shopper. The message was unmistakable. If you can't afford the $3,000 bag, we don't want you here. So the Henrys listened. They went to Walmart, they went to Amazon, and they never looked back. This is the K-shaped reality, and it explains everything. While Saks was filing for bankruptcy, Hermes posted 10% growth in 2025. Their customers are inflation-proof. Meanwhile, Walmart and Amazon saw a 15% surge in premium apparel as the middle class quietly traded down. The middle is being hollowed out, not slowly, surgically. By February 2026, 9 iconic flagship stores had gone dark forever, from the historic Neiman Marcus in Boston to the Saks in Philadelphia. And when these anchors fall, the Class A mall doesn't limp along, it dies with them. These aren't just store closures, they're the end of the American town square of aspirational wealth. The collapse of Saks Global wasn't really about a missed interest payment. It wasn't even about a badly structured merger. It was the final act of an era, the era in which the American middle class could afford the illusion of wealth. In 2025 alone, the luxury market lost 20 million active consumers. They didn't disappear, they woke up. They realized that the marble floors, the perfumed air, the velvet rope, it was all a stage set, and they could no longer afford the ticket. At the start, I said I'd earn your sub before I asked for it. If you now understand why the department store is dying better than you did 10 minutes ago, that button's right there. It tells the algorithm that this kind of research is worth making.
And if you think I missed a piece of the puzzle, the rise of TikTok Shop, the death of brand loyalty, fight me about it in the comments. Check the pinned comment. If you had $3,000 today, do you buy the bag at Saks or do you buy the dupe and invest the rest?